Well, thank you all so much for being here today for the 2024-2025 case reveal. I can take my sticky note off the screen telling me to start the recording. This should take about 25 to 35 minutes today to get us started. And we are so excited to have everyone here to share with us this case reveal. I can even see, so a couple folks have already tried to click on the case. The links to the case are live, but the view is still restricted. So I won't lift the restricted view until I end this meeting, but then I'll go in and hit the view so you'll be able to see it. So thank you again for joining us at the case reveal. I am Lydia Mitchell. I am the Director of Programs and Outreach for the Michigan Center for Civic Education, and I'm your statewide mock trial coordinator for this program in particular. Our agenda today, before we get to the nitty-gritty of the case, I will give a brief overview of how the Michigan Center for Civic Education structures our mock trial program and some of our goals and overall purposes and mission here at the Michigan Center for Civic Education. And then we will dig right into the case material. I will tell you out front, the case is State of Michigan versus Hunter Hemingway. It is a criminal trial as expected, and we think that everyone's going to be pretty excited about it. We will then have a couple details about our other programs, our companion programs, and then we will jump into a few edits and changes to the rules and the procedures packet for this year. And then I will complete the presentation with a couple links to the resources for folks to find their regional events and their invitations for both teams and for volunteers. And we'll, as we always do, ask you to help support MCCE as we recruit volunteers and move into our program year. So that is our agenda for the day. Ellen, do you want to go ahead and say hello before we move on?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are so appreciative for all of the work that you do as educators, for the work that you do as students to really advance the best of law-related education and civic education as a whole. I'm Ellen Zwarnstein. I'm the Executive Director at the Michigan Center for Civic Education, and we are pleased to have Lydia. So if you could all join me in thanking Lydia for the work that she has done, not only to get you a great case, but to get it out in October. That is a major lift, and we're so grateful that Lydia has joined the center to help with this work. So thank you to Lydia as well. One thing, as you know, we've made a lot of changes over the years with mock trial in efforts to make sure that you know that this is a community that is here for you and because of you. So if there is ever anything that we can do to help advance any aspect of mock trial inclusion, please make sure you reach out to us. It is our hope that each and every one of you has a place and has a feeling of belonging here at MCCE, both in mock trial and beyond. So one of the other pieces we are happy to continue is courtroom artistry in journalism. So know that while we're not going to focus on that too much here, know that all the artists and all the journalists are welcome back with open arms. And we are so grateful that you lend your talents to tell the story of what happens inside the courtrooms, because you are really the keepers of history. And that matters a whole lot to all of the work that is done. So that will continue, and we are so pleased to continue artistry and journalism. I will say, if you're ever interested in more opportunities with MCCE, both as a student, as a teacher, as a learner, in any aspect, there are many more programs that we offer, including We the People, which as mock trialers you would really, really love, and also Project Community, which as advocates you would really, really love to get to know more about your communities and how to make civics come to life through public policy change. So with that, that's not what you're here to. Why you are here is to listen to me talk about MCCE at more. Just know that there's a place for you always here at MCCE. Think about committees, other programs, and the road. So I'll turn it back to Lydia so that you can learn about this year's case, which I will say is a note was selected prior to recent events, but you might find it to be really relevant. So with that in mind, Take it away, Lydia.
Thank you, Ellen. So as I said, we'll do a quick overview of our purposes and goals here at the Michigan Center for Civic Education. For us, mock trial is about growing and expanding the legal community, elevating law-related and civic education across the state, and connecting you students to the legal profession, including trial advocacy, courtroom artistry, journalism, really elevating civic education for you as students and providing an opportunity for students, teachers, and professionals in the law to network together, and really show how mock trial and legal education really fits our civic education goals, our social studies goals in the state around inquiry and skills-based learning. So while mock trial is the vehicle and the vessel, whether you know it or not, students, you're learning skills and tools that are both in our social studies standards here in Michigan, but also really important skills to equip you no matter where you head in your future career. So we really see mock trial as a broad tool for elevating and supporting civic education. And the board of directors at the Michigan Center for Civic Education has a commitment to equity and inclusion. And so part of that commitment is expressing through mock trial how our mock trial program in particular addresses equity and accessibility for young people. So our tools and resources, our case, our framework for how to run a mock trial are available to any teacher, any educator in the state of Michigan who would like to use it in their classroom. Many of you are here today because you intend to participate in our competitive tournament that takes place through the Michigan Center for Civic Education. But we make sure that our model is to foster academic and learning environments across the state for students, volunteers, and other stakeholders to really find their place and how mock trial can help them address their learning goals. All right. As y'all know, this is the beginning of the mock trial season. Welcome to September and October. You've begun recruiting your teams. We've begun recruiting the courthouses and the locations. We have actually published our calendar, and I'm going to show you in a little bit how to get to those individual invitations. And then as you'll see, we're releasing the case today. Any issues, errors, or edits will be dealt with between now and the beginning of December. On November 1st, we will open team and volunteer registration. And then that registration will close in early January, and we will then publish which of the tournaments you have been assigned to, that it will take place between February 7th and March 8th. With the state competition taking place in Lansing on March 21st and 22nd. And then this year's National High School Mock Trial Competition will take place in May, the 8th through the 10th in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's our season for the year. Just a quick note, I did note that you will currently be able to see the link to the case materials. So this is on www.miciviced.org. And then under this tab, you will hover here and get a programs list. And then you will come to the mock trial page. As you scroll down, you will see these blocks. They do currently link to the case materials. It's a hidden Google Doc, so you are currently restricted access to it, but we will open that restriction as soon as we're off this meeting. So the case materials will be here. The rules and procedures will be here. And then the FAQ form to submit will go here. And then on November 1st, these links will open and be live. In fact, the Tab Room site is already live for volunteers. It's not yet live for teams, but you will be able to get to everything you need at myciviced.org programs mock trial. The other important piece of information to remember is that on that page, if you scroll down, is that team FAQ document, how to start a program, all the specific regulations around what you would need to know to start a team. And then in that document is also our mock trial sharing folder, which includes a number of resources and links in that mock trial sharing folder, including previous cases, tools for recruiting at your schools. So a recruitment flyer, I actually just today, I moved this flyer into this folder. We also have, the announcement script, some other tools to help you at your school. And then in this folder are the regional event invitations. There's invitations that look like this that have all of the dates on them. But there are also individual invitations for each of your sites that include the name of the courthouse and the address. So if you have parents who are looking for information, or you have colleagues or knowledge of folks who might be interested in volunteering, we ask you to share either this flyer that has all of the dates or the flyer that's specific to your region and your area to share with folks. So we have lots of resources here. I will say, last night on the mock trial roundtable for the coaches, a coach discussed a tool that he had used to have his students go out and recruit mock trial students from other classes. He graciously shared that file, and we've already placed it into this folder. So this is really a living space for you as coaches to share tools or resources that you have. And if you are willing or able to share anything that you think could help another team, we could place it in this folder for that use. So again, all of that is on www.miciviced.org under our mock trial programs flyer. And then before we get to the heart of the case reveal, I would be remiss if we didn't share and remind folks that in order to make this program possible for all 500 plus students across the state of Michigan, we rely heavily on volunteers as judges, both presiding and scoring, as court officers and liaisons, as well as judges and tabulators for the artist and journalist programs, and even some, logistics, registration, and oversight help on site. So if you have any friends or colleagues who are interested in supporting in any of these roles, we can always use your help sharing, again, those volunteer flyers with those dates and information to say, join us, be part of the movement to make this program possible for the hundreds of students each year that participate. All right, so here we are, the 2024-25 case reveal. Just to torture you, I'm going to take one quick sip of water. So this year's case, as you saw before, was the state of Michigan versus Hunter Hemingway. Hunter Hemingway is actually one of two partners who are writers in Northern Michigan and came together. Both Hunter Hemingway and Holly Wood came together to write the play Burr. And it's on stage. It was supposed to be on stage at the Bark Theater, which is located in sleepy Northern Michigan in a little town called Porcupine. And the play was supposed to go on stage on October. Holly and Hunter even had some California TV producers interested in buying the script and turning it into a TV show when disaster struck. On the evening of the dress rehearsal, a few changes took place in the casting, and the climax scene here in the play, the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr resulted in the death of Holly Wood. Holly Wood was in the role of Aaron Burr, and history buffs will know Aaron Burr is not the one who should have been shot in that scene. But alas, Holly is no longer with us, and we have a cast of characters all telling a slightly different story about what happened that night on stage. So some of the evidence includes the props, the prop guns, as you saw on the last slide, that should have been filled with a paper wad, but instead someone had in fact loaded the gun with actual ammo. So we've got some information about who was there that night and who was not, where they were supposed to be, and what really took place. Your witnesses include the sheriff who did the investigation, Quinn is our stage volunteer and prop manager, so really the one responsible for caring for those prop guns. And then Scout Ting is our TV producer, flown in from California for the evening to see the play in action and really see if the money that Scout planned to put forward to buy this script was going to be worth it. Hunter Hemingway, who helped write the play, and the night in question was in the seat of Alexander Hamilton, though he was not originally cast to be in that seat, is the one who fired the shot. Lynn Jones was also on hand on stage. Lynn was supposed to come to the aid of Alexander Hamilton after they had been shot, but in fact went over to Hollywood as she was the one who had taken a bullet that night. And then Jackie Lopez was originally our cast as Alexander Hamilton, but was asked to not step in that night by various folks. So the question that we will need to answer is what really happened? Who loaded the gun and who had motive to end Hollywood's life? We are very excited about this case, and as Ellen alluded to at the beginning, this case was actually originally written back in 2019, so prior to some of the real life cases that might seem similar. Just to give you a couple other pieces in the case packet, you saw a couple of the pieces of evidence. You will also see the medical examiner's report, some emails between Scout Ting and Hollywood and Hunter Hemingway, as well as your grand jury indictment of first-degree murder and the jury instructions outlining the elements of murder that will need to be proven. The final piece of evidence are the index cards collected by the sheriff on the night in question, and it should be a relatively exciting case for all of you students to put together. So, are there any initial questions that we can answer regarding the case or where to find it? A lot to absorb. All right, so just a couple pieces before we move on to we have one very exciting addition to the rules. I won't call it a rule change because it's an addition, though we've been previewing it with folks. But just a reminder that your mock trial team, your trial team, or legal team is made up of those 6 to 12 students to fill those roles that we just talked about, the 3 witnesses and 3 attorneys on each side. Do remember that the attorney who gives the opening statement must be different than the attorney who gives the closing statement. That's laid out in the rules, and we just want to clarify that. Some reminders about our artist and journalist program. As we continue to grow this component of the program, we will continue to invite the artists and journalists to register throughout the year, including inviting a large swath of students to participate in both their regional tournament and the state level competition in Lansing. We will also focus our December Coaches Roundtable on the topic of artistry and journalism. So we'll bring in some outside speakers to help you as coaches have some resources and tools to support those students. All right, a couple rule changes. The biggest one, I'll preview all of them and I'll go into them in detail. So we are proposing an optional buy-busting format for this year. I'll talk a little bit about how that will work, but it will be students, active students from your teams who are inviting to be part of the buy-busting. There was a number of formatting and numbering changes. So just if you are a veteran and are used to the sections that certain things were in, team eligibility criteria became its own section within the rules. And then we did a little bit of updating of what really consists of a team and what can go on your tab room registration. So I'll point that section out, as well as a clarification for the judges really about the authenticity of the document, federal rule of evidence. So those are the sections we're going to talk about. The biggest thing being this optional buy busting opportunity. So what we are attempting to do with this is put into play what we always say and what's so important to us at MCCE, which is the more mock trial, the better. The more chances that you, the students, have to stand in the courtroom and compete in your roles and play out the work that you put in throughout the whole year, the better. That's what's important to us. And so when you arrive at your selected regional, if there are an odd number of teams at that regional, any team that has enough students to field both sides of the case at any given time will be invited to submit their otherwise rostered participants who would be sitting in the audience during a trial to participate as a buy busting team. We're going to do everything we can to not indicate to the scoring judges that this is in fact a buy busting round, that any team is different than what they would expect. So those students will get feedback. There will be scores, input for the students participating as the buy busting team. And the team that would have otherwise taken the buy but is participating with them will get the same scores. The buy busting team scores will not be contributed or tabulated with the rest of their scores, but this is just to make sure that there aren't judges who the judges wouldn't otherwise score it differently because it's a different type of round. This will take place after the pairing process. So once the teams are paired, whoever's paired with the buy busting team, we will then take a look at which side the buy busting team is on, and give the option to the teams who have the extra students to participate. So it's a little bit complicated. The language is highlighted in yellow in the document, and I'm realizing now I didn't put it on the slide, but I can tell you in just a second which page of the rules that this change is on. But all changes are going to be highlighted in yellow in the case packet. So the buy busting structure is going to be in section 7D under buy busting, and it will be on page 10. So you'll be able to read through it all the way through it and ask any questions. Are there any initial questions on the table? I'm glad to hear folks are excited about it. We are excited to offer it as an opportunity for, students who worked really hard and maybe otherwise would have only gone once on their side, get a chance to go a second time and get to really elevate their experience by being engaged the whole day. Great. The rest of the changes are honestly just typographical. So I want to make sure that I put these up here. I am not going to read them out loud. They'll be in the recording. But again, these are all non-substantive. They don't change the rules in any way. They just simply clarify or are moved. The only one I'll point out is that under 10D3, we are just going to open it up on tab room when you register, that you can actually type in your timekeepers' names as part of your tab room registration, just for ease of name tags and knowing who to expect on site. So timekeepers are going to be allowed to be added to your tab room registration so that we have their names and we know who's participating in each trial. So that's the only one that's really, it seems like a change. The rest of them are really just were moved or reworded. And then that footnote rule, that's going to be on page 40. I'll get the number in just a second. So this is just to clarify for the volunteer judges that if a team were to object to a a piece of evidence coming in because it can't be verified, because we can't call a custodian of records. What we're saying is basically, if you object as a team, the judge can say, yes, I see your objection, I hear your objection, it does make sense. But here in mock trial, we are going to permit this to come in because we don't have a process to call a custodian of records to lay that foundation. So this is just to really make sure there's equity across the courtrooms, and we don't have one courtroom saying, you're right, that's true, you can't bring that in, and kind of throwing your whole case out in a tizzy, versus another trial, the judge understanding that we can't lay this foundation because we don't have that process in mock trial. So hopefully it just clarifies and makes it easier for both students to understand this hearsay objection, understand how it works, and even maybe object to it, but also have your team not be thrown off by it because you can't call a custodian of records. So that is on page 39 of the rules packet. Let me not go to that yet. Are there any questions about those 3 points around rules changes? In the chat. Great. All right. Bringing us to the final discussion point, which is we do at the Michigan Center for Civic Education, we focus 80%, 90% of our work on preparing the case and the pre-work and everything heading up to the regionals, because for about 80 to 82% of you, the regional event is the end of your season. And that's really what we focus on and the goal of our program. But for the select few who do move on to state championship, we do have that state championship event and intend to, sorry, that went forward and I didn't mean for it to. We do intend to, make the regional or the state competition in Lansing a 2-day event. So we're hoping that this will allow us to include another round. Can you hear me? Great. To include another round and ensure that every team that makes the drive to Lansing, that makes it to the state tournament, gets a chance to compete 4 times. So twice on each side. Our goal here, again, is you put in a lot of effort and a lot of work, and you deserve for that to be celebrated. We talked a little bit about it last night on the coaches roundtable, and we will continue to develop the plan. But the idea is to get round 1 done in the courthouse on Friday afternoon, and then have a dinner reception, and then move on to 2 rounds in the morning, 1 right after lunch, and then after lunch round still include everybody, but be a hidden semifinal. So the top 4 teams paired against each other. Everyone else's pairings will also be matched based on their rank and their performance. And then every single student will be eligible for individual awards. So your score in round 4 will be tabulated for individual awards, which will take place right before this final round of the state championship. So that's our current vision. Again, I'm happy to take feedback now, but also certainly happy, coaches, to have you talk with your teams and talk with your families and schools about it, and reach out to us with any feedback or initial concerns. We will work very hard. We're already working very hard to find a group rate at a hotel that's very reasonable, but we will also work with teams to make sure that affordability is not a problem, and that we can get teams to the state championship. Any questions? And part of that is our Civic Access Initiative we rolled out last year. We will continue to share with you resources to push out to folks around contributions, both to MCCE, where it needs to be to a nonprofit, but also any support we can provide for you to do the fundraising locally that you need to do. We know that attending our competition is relatively affordable, though there will be a small price increase this year per team, but we know those aren't your only costs. We know that transportation and other costs are also barriers for your team. So we want to do everything we can to make that easier for you. And then please share those files. I'm just going to do a quick, did that switch to off my presentation and to my browser here? Can you see? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so this is the myciviced.org website. When you hover over mock trial, you end up here. And this is, again, where you're going to find those case materials. This is that Google Doc that I talked about that is linked on this page. And then in that doc is the mock trial sharing folder. Within that folder are the regional event invitations. And so this is where you're going to find those individual invitations for each of your regional events. So please be sure to access those at your leisure in order to be able to get what you need, but also to share with any local volunteers. All right, that wraps up the presentation with 5 minutes left for questions.